Holy crap, Disney! Hi everybody, Anthony here from Awesome Anthony Productions, and today we're going to continue the month of Spooktober with my review of quite possibly the best thing that Marvel's put out, probably ever, but definitely in Phase 4.
Werewolf by Night.
But before we get started, please go ahead and subscribe and make sure you ring that bell so that you never miss any of my new reviews or shorts. You can also scroll down to the description and find my TikTok and my Instagram. Now let's get into it. In my opinion, Marvel's Phase 4 has been life-changing at the best and insultingly bad at the worst. While the rest of it is just pretty damn mediocre, with way too much of a focus on current day messaging instead of just focusing on good stories and good characters. The Disney Plus shows have been all over the board, Moon Knight being the best and She-Hulk definitely being the worst, with everything else also just kind of sitting in the middle in terms of quality. Regardless of how good the show is, the last episodes tend to always feel so rushed and fall into that typical Marvel CGI climax crap. But Werewolf by Night sits in a league all on its own. Based on a Marvel horror comic from the 70s that was inspired by the Wolfman, Werewolf by Night centers on the titular, Werewolf by Night, played here by Gael Garcia Bernal. After Ulysses, the patriarch of the monster-hunting Bloodstone family, dies, and is turned into an animatronic apparently. His widow, Verussa, played by a scenery-chewing Harriet Sansom Harris, invites a secret society of monster hunters, including Jack and her stepdaughter Elsa, played by Laurel Donnelly, to participate in a cross between a monster hunt and a battle royale of sorts, to get the Bloodstone heirloom from the monster and determine who's going to be the next leader of the family.
It is every hunter for themselves.
But before long, the hunters will realize that the monster they're coming after... But before long, the hunters will realize that the monster they're hunting is the least of their worries when Jack finally transforms into the Werewolf by Night. Right away from the Marvel opening that we've now seen 1,000 times, Michael Giacchino's adoration of the classic Universal monster movies comes right through when we switch that shit to black and white and pump in some amazing classic, but still modern sounding music that fits right with this monster theme. And that score, of course, was also done by Michael Giacchino, who is the director of this special. Wow, was this just a breath of fresh air that the MCU desperately needed? And for a directorial debut, this was really impressive. The homage to classic monster movies with the black and white and everything feels like much more than just a gimmick. It's clear that Giacchino and his crew really wanted to make this, felt inspired, and wanted to break away from the classic Marvel formula. And it's hardcore! For starters, let's look at the fact that this is a full-blown horror movie set in the MCU. I'll admit that I was a little hyped after seeing Doctor Strange 2, and I gave that movie a bit more of a higher review. I've watched it a few times since then, and I see a lot of flaws with it. And I may have jumped the gun by calling it an MCU horror movie. Though, in my defense, who saw this coming? Yes, Doctor Strange 2 did have some scary moments and surprising violence in some scenes, but it still ended up bowing down to the typical action-packed, CGI-heavy Marvel ending that we're all just kind of sick of at this point. And it really didn't take too many chances with the scares, the story, or even the characters. This, on the other hand, is dark, violent, and mature. Sure, it may not be anywhere as scary as some of the horror movies we got in this year. Go check out my review of Smile, by the way. And there's definitely some levity and jokes peppered in here and there. But there are still some effective scares here, especially when the werewolf does eventually come into the story. That's not a spoiler, by the way. It's in the trailer and the freaking title. That entire climactic sequence is jaw-droppingly creative, with the werewolf attacking being an incredibly effective homage to classic werewolf movies that actually serves the story and can get pretty scary for viewers who don't typically watch horror, especially kids. That scene is also a great display of the level of violence that's in this thing, easily pushing past the PG-13 and into R territory for a lot of it. Stabbings, impalements, severed limbs, people being burned/melted alive, which I'll actually talk a little bit about more later, mauling. Nearly all of it is super bloody, and honestly gets a little gory, all in full view of the camera. But hey, it's okay and doesn't get an R rating because, you know, blood isn't red in black and white. The violence only adds to this already creative and wild Marvel special. But just like the homage to classic monster movies, it never just feels like a gimmick. Everything that happens here is in service of the story, and is done with such passion and reverence that it's really hard to find anything to complain about. Even down to the effects. Aside from one all CGI character that I'll talk about later, some CGI blood and some magical elements, pretty much all the effects here are practical, including the actual werewolf design itself, which feels very Lon Chaney Jr. Wolfman inspired with its humanoid appearance instead of the more wolf-like werewolves that we've seen in a lot of properties lately. And that's very comic accurate too. And that score! Holy shit! I know I've gone off before in reviews about my love for Michael Giacchino and his music, but wow, is this one special. Before, I said how the score is very clearly inspired by classic monster movie themes, while still feeling modern, and with Giacchino not only writing the score but stepping into the director's chair, this super effective score is interwoven into the piece and almost feels like another character in some scenes. So yeah, no surprise there that Giacchino gave us another kick-ass soundtrack. The last thing I want to talk about before I wrap up this review is the cast and characters. I already mentioned Gael Garcia Bernal as Jack Russell, and he is just fantastic. There's no other way to put it. He almost looks strung out in some scenes, showing that he's been afflicted with this werewolf thing for a very long time, and he's just as scared of it coming out as everybody else is. He wants to do good, he wants to protect the people that he cares about, and he isolates himself when he needs to. And Bernal plays this role so naturally that you can see all of that just by looking in his eyes and listening to the way that he interacts with people. He was definitely the right choice for Jack. And when he turns into the werewolf, man is he scary and vicious, which is just complemented by the practical effects, cinematography, score, and brutal violence of that sequence. He also has plenty of chemistry with Laura Donnelly's Elsa, a surprising co-lead that I honestly didn't expect to see so much of, but she has a lot of screen time. Some people may be a bit turned off by hearing me say that, expecting another bait-and-switch situation full of ridiculously unrealistic violence, but she never steals the spotlight from Jack. And though she's a complete badass who can hold her own, she's not perfect and she does make mistakes and take damage, especially when she goes up against somebody twice her size. She's also written very well, and her skills and her motivation are understandable, and just add to her character development. And in the end, I was all the more interested to learn about her life and her relationship with her estranged father and her stepmother. Speaking of, there's also Harriet Sansom Harris's seen stealing Verussa, who was born for this kind of role. She is so evil and maniacal, sneering and cackling her way through almost every scene.
Can't wait to find out what breed of evil you are.
She is definitely aware of what type of special this is and what it's inspired by, and she leans fully into that camp. But at the same time, it never comes off as parody, and you still take her kind of seriously, and the whole thing just works very well. And the last standout character in this special, someone that you probably didn't expect, the monster that's being hunted, is a familiar face that popped up for a brief second in the trailer to get all the comic fans excited. Man-Thing! Yes, Man-Thing is in this special, and he's fantastic. I won't spoil how much he's in it and to what capacity he plays in the story, but he definitely has a key role here and is much more than just a cameo. His look is about as comic accurate as you can get. The CGI is the best that we've seen in a Marvel property in a long time, and he's actually a character that is pretty damn adorable in certain scenes. Now, comic fans, don't count out the torches and pitchforks because I said Man-Thing is adorable here. Yes, he's adorable in some scenes, but trust me, they play up just how brutal he can be too. And he definitely brings the tagline, "Whoever knows fear burns at the touch of the Man-Thing," to life, in a horrific display to what looks like one of the worst ways to die that I've ever seen. Now, for the rest of the characters, I won't really say that much about the rest of the hunters because they don't really get that much development, and I honestly couldn't even tell you half of their names. They're kind of just there to fight, add to the body count, and spout some one-liners, and they serve their purpose and they're fine. This isn't about them. This isn't their story. And, yeah, I just realized I don't really have a segue to finish the review. So yeah, that's my review for Werewolf by Night. Stylish, creepy, effective, surprisingly violent, and full of heart, this special takes the MCU cake in terms of originality and creativity. It's also taking the MCU in a bold, inspired direction that I really hope to see more of, as long as they do it right. Anyway, I've been Anthony from Awesome Anthony Productions, and if you like this video, you know what to do. Leave a like, you can also leave a comment and tell me what you thought, and scroll on down there, subscribe, ring that bell so that you never miss any of my content. You can also follow me on Instagram and TikTok. You can find the links for those in the description below. You can also click or tap on these cards here. They'll take you to my review of Smile, or just over to my channel where you can check out my reviews, my shorts, and my old shit. Thank you so much for watching, foolish mortals. And I'll see you next week when we continue Spooktober with my review of Halloween Ends. Hopefully that movie doesn't suck. See ya!